Welcome to Master 2255 English Phrasal Verbs, complete course with 150 categories for fluency. This course is your complete guide to mastering every essential phrasal verb you need to sound fluent, confident, and natural in English. Today, we're diving into an essential topic for every English learner: language learning. Essential phrasal verbs to improve your skills. These phrasal verbs will help you study smarter, learn faster, and communicate more effectively. Let's get started. First up is pick up. This means to learn something informally or naturally, without formal instruction. For example, I picked up a lot of new vocabulary by watching TV shows in English. Or, living in another country is one of the fastest ways to pick up a new language. Next, we have brush up on. This means to review or improve your existing knowledge of something. For instance, before the exam, I need to brush up on my grammar skills, or he's brushing up on his Spanish before his trip to Mexico. The third phrasal verb is look up. It means to search for information, especially in a dictionary, book, or online. For example, if you don't know the meaning of a word, look it up in a dictionary. Or, I always look up unfamiliar phrasal verbs when I hear them in conversations. Next is keep up with. This means to stay at the same pace as others or stay updated. For instance, it's important to keep up with the latest language learning trends, or I'm trying to keep up with my classmates in our English lessons. The next phrasal verb is get by. This means to manage or survive using the knowledge or resources you have. For example, my Spanish isn't perfect, but I can get by in conversations. Or, you don't need to know every phrasal verb to get by in English. The next one is figure out. It means to solve a problem or understand something. For instance, it took me a while to figure out how to pronounce that word, or if you practice regularly, you'll figure out how to use phrasal verbs naturally. Now, let's look at go over. This means to review or check something carefully. For example, let's go over the key points from today's lesson. Or, before the exam, I always go over my notes to make sure I understand everything. Up next is catch on. It means to understand something after some time or effort. For instance, it took me a few lessons to catch on to how phrasal verbs work. Or, at first it was hard, but I eventually caught on. The next phrasal verb is drop out. It means to quit or stop attending a course, school, or activity. For example, he dropped out of the language course because it was too difficult, or many students drop out of online courses before completing them. Then we have hand in. This means to submit a task, assignment, or document. For example, don't forget to hand in your essay before the deadline. Or, our teacher asked us to hand in our homework before the weekend. Next up is fall behind. It means to be slower than others or to not meet deadlines. For instance, if you miss too many lessons, you'll fall behind in the course, or I fell behind on my vocabulary practice last week, so now I have to catch up. Speaking of catching up, our next phrasal verb is take up. This means to start doing a new activity or learning something new. For example, I've decided to take up learning French as a new hobby, or she took up learning phrasal verbs to improve her speaking skills. The next phrasal verb is write down. It means to take notes or record information on paper or digitally. For example, write down any new phrasal verbs you hear so you can review them later, or I always write down useful expressions from podcasts to remember them. The next one is speak up. This means to talk louder or express your opinion. For instance, if you don't understand something in class, don't be afraid to speak up, or the teacher asked us to speak up during discussions so everyone could hear. And finally, we have work out. It has several meanings, but here it means to figure out or understand something. For instance, if you practice, you'll eventually work out how to use phrasal verbs naturally. Or, it took me a while, but I worked out how to use get by correctly in a sentence. These phrasal verbs are essential tools for mastering language learning. Use them daily as you improve your English, and you'll be well on your way to fluency. Keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next lesson.